Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys making some time out of your day to spend with me on the video and check it out. Really appreciate that. And guys, today I want to give you all some advice and some tips on catching bass as you get over 50 years of age, because there are some challenges that come with it. I can attest to, since I'm over 50, and I want to give you guys some sort of my thoughts a little bit on some things you can do to not only keep catching bass, but actually improve yourself as an angler, because you do have to make some changes for some, just from some of the considerations that I'll talk about in this video. So we're going to get into that in today's episode. Also, guys, a quick invitation. You hear me talk about it. I want to invite everybody to please swing by fishthemoment.com in the link I put in this description and check out my lake map breakdowns that I built for Fish the Moment. I've got lake map breakdowns of all lakes across the country, all 4 seasons of the year. This is a really good resource, guys, if you want to find some good spots on the lake that you fish a lot, or say you're going to a lake you've never been to before. This is a really good resource on getting a lot of information on that lake. So I'll put the Fish the Moment lake map breakdown link in the description. You guys can check that out if you want to get some of those maps there. Much appreciated. Okay, guys, one of the things that I've tried to do in fishing is I've tried hard to be aware of the aging process and how it affects your fishing success, because I went through it, man. I started fishing competitively on the Bassmaster Tour when I was 24 years old, and I'll be turning 63 here next month. So, I've seen that evolution of what takes place as an angler as you get older. And I want to sort of go through that a little bit and sort of talk about some things you can do to improve yourself as an angler if you're over 50. Because depending upon your own situation, there are some changes as far as, how many fish you catch. And it's sort of a subtle change here. It's something that doesn't happen real quick, because as you get older, it's like one of the primest examples, guys, is like every tournament angler out there, there's never been anybody that hasn't. When they get over 50, their success simply goes down. Nobody's been immune to it. Kevin Van Dam hadn't been immune to it. Denny Brower, even Clun, even Rick Clun, even though he won a couple tournaments when he was older, he stopped making classics when he got over 50 as much. Larry, everybody, it's like, it's okay. It's just part of the process of getting older. And I tried to identify that because I didn't really understand why the success rate of anglers went down as they got older, because common, thinking would be is, okay, the more you know about fish and the more you understand fish, you're going to keep catching them better and better and better as you get older. But that's not the way it is, because I think there's a lot of different things that take place here. I want to preface this before I get into the tips and advice. I think the biggest thing that happens is you get locked into certain ways that you like to fish, in terms of, you've caught fish doing one thing for year after year after year. It's very difficult for you to adopt new techniques, new areas. I don't mean technology, because technology is a completely different animal here. Electronic technology is an artificial way of improving your fishing success. I'm talking about, say for example, you love to pitch and flip, and that's all you did, your whole life, is you pitched and flipped, and you never picked up a spinning rod and put a shaky head on. That's the type of things I'm talking in, as far as getting locked in to one technique where you didn't, expand and become more versatile. That's one thing that happens as you age. The next thing that happens is, I think that your drive and your focus and your passion, as far as to get better and better and better, sort of goes away a little bit, because as you get older, you have more responsibilities. You got family to take care of, you got bills to pay, you got other interests. That's a natural progression. Another thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is your eyesight. Everyone I know, is like, when you get into your 40s, most people have to start having reading glasses, including me. And I've noticed in my own eyesight, it's like, every year it gets just a tiny bit fuzzier. And I think in terms of actual casting and putting that bait where you want it, I think that has an impact, and that causes you to catch less fish. That's one progression with it. And then depending upon your physical condition, some people, maintain their physical condition, well into their 70s, 80s. Other people sort of let themselves go. So there's a determination with that. So anyway, here's some things you can do, guys, if you're over 50. that's going to help you catch more fish. First of all, you sort of have to readjust or recalibrate your approach as far as your techniques to accommodate your body getting older. Now, I'll give you all two prime examples here of two different type of anglers, Larry Nixon and Rick Clunn. Let's talk about that. Rick Clunn has always been known as a power fisherman. He, fished crankbaits a lot shallow. He fished spinner baits. He fished buzz baits. He was a moving bait power fisherman for most of his career. And what happened as Rick started getting over 50, his consistency started going downhill. He would still occasionally, come out and win a big tournament when those techniques got into his wheelhouse. But his overall consistency compared to back when he was at the top of his game really went downhill after he was 50. Now, you take another angler like Larry Nixon. Larry Nixon has always been a worm fisherman, a jig and a worm fisherman, real slow, methodical fishing. And Larry was able, he maintained his consistency as far as winning tournaments and qualifying for championships well into his 60s. I remember back when Larry was in his 50s and early 60s, he was still qualifying for every championship, Forest Wood Cups, whatever, every single year. And I think a lot of that was due to the fact that he was a slow, methodical fisherman. And as he got older, it wasn't like Rick. Rick was a power fisherman, just making tons and tons of casts, burning, stop and go retrieve. And I think physically, Larry, the approach that Larry had, his technique of slow, methodical, and dragging that worm, it enabled him to continue to be successful as he aged and his body took on the natural aging process. And this is a very important lesson to learn. I think one of the things that every angler has to do as you get older, you have to shift away from those power fishing techniques. If you like to power fish in the past, if you like to burn a crankbait or burn a spinner bait or throw a big honk and glide bait, something that requires a lot of physical movement with your wrists and your arms, and simply something that burns more calories, I think that it behooves an angler as they get older to go the route of Larry Nixon and Guido Hibden. Pick up that bait cast rod with a worm or a jig, pick up that spinning rod with a shaky head or a Ned rig, and start fishing techniques and approaches that you can slow down, where it doesn't require as much physical effort. Now, I don't mean that you're some decrepit old person that can't throw crankbait. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about this shift in mentality where you're fishing more slower and you're fishing more methodical and you're adjusting your areas at the same way. You're not pattern fishing, you're area fishing more. So for example, if Rick Clunn's technique was to burn miles and miles of this rocky shoreline with the crankbait, and Larry Nixon was going to set on this one point, and he was going to fish a Ned rig and a shaky head on that point just for hours and hours and hours, that's the advantage that somebody that has that type of approach is going to have as far as catching more fish as they get older. It's sort of like the old joke, guys, and I'll clean it up a little bit because this is a dirty joke. I don't want to offend people, but you guys have probably heard the story of the two bulls that are sitting up on top of the hill looking down in the pasture, a big pasture full of heifers down there. And the young bull, there's a young bull and an old bull, and the young bull says, "Man, let's run down there and get us one of those heifers." And the old bull looks at me and goes, "No, let's walk down there and get all those heifers." That's the difference I'm talking about between, being a younger, pump full of testosterone, vigor of life angler, and being some old grizzled skilled angler that's been around forever. You have to shift that, and you have to make that approach shift in your fishing. So that's probably the biggest thing with that. The next thing with that is like I said, when you go out there, instead of trying to do everything, instead of getting up there and say, okay, I'm going to start out with a spinner bait, then I'm going to go to a buzz bait, then I'm going to go to crankbait. Instead of trying to do everything and cover a ton of the lake, pick you out one creek arm and just, like I said, put you on a jig, finesse jig, shaky head, whatever like that, and fish everything nice and slow, methodical in that creek arm. To me, it just seems like there's so much more benefit to that as you get older as an angler. I'll give you guys one example here. back here in Missouri, I used to fish at a circuit called Central Pro-Am. And back when I fished it, there was an angler named Dave Barker back then. Dave was the oldest angler on our circuit, but he was one of the top 3 anglers. He would either win Angler of the Year, he'd win tournaments, being the oldest guy out there. And about the only thing Dave did was drag a big Texas rig worm or throw a Carolina rig. And that's what he did. He got out there on a point and he'd drag a worm on it, or he'd drag a Carolina rig on it, and he'd win tournaments, well into his 60s. I mean, he was 20 years older or 30 years older than most of the competitors, but still was able to do that because he adjusted his techniques, to his age. So you can't fight it. I'm telling you, there's some things you can do to slow it down. I mean, like I said, you can get in the gym and you can do some stuff, but overall, it's not just one thing. It's a combination of everything that happens during the aging process that requires you to have a shift in the way that you approach bass fishing. And don't let that get you down, because you can still do it, man. You can still compete. You can still have great days on the water. You just have to adjust to, your changing body and your changing mind and everything that comes with that. Nothing wrong with it. It's part of the aging process. All these guys now, they're 20-year-old flat brimmer live scopers. They're going to go through the same thing. When they get over 50, their success is going to start going down, and they're going to have to, reinvent themselves as an angler at that point. So, guys, hope it helps out, and we'll talk later. See you.